Okay, now we will start our session, and we will review the questions. What is the importance of auditing in cloud hosting? Okay. الوكيل, he mentioned ensure compliance with policy and regulations. Prem cloud involves a number of third parties, suppliers with assurance and Prem, the answer of Al-Wakil or Mahmoud visits the one which I want to hear it. You know, there are some good expressions which it will give you the meaning of the definitions. Your answer, it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. But this answer which I'm looking for, the auditing means that you want to make sure that the compliance with your rules and policy to make sure that you are compliant with the rules and policy. Then this, it will be very short and it will give the right what is the difference between disaster recovery and business continuity? Disaster recovery is a part of business continuity to ensure business running at acceptable way. Okay, DR deals with technical aspects, restoration of services. BC deals with functional aspects, business aspects, determine the critical business. Okay, it's not here, Mahmoud. You have one point. It's DR is a part of business continuity. No discussion. This is the right answer to ensure business running at acceptable way. Yes, but you did not mention that during a disaster. You have to mention that this is during a disaster, because this it will, yani, is it a disaster recovery? It will be used if you have يعني something very minor, it's affected, a switch, access switch is down. Of course not, because that's disaster recovery. It is related to some failure in the data center, and this is disaster, and you want to fail over the service to another data center. For Prem here, deal with technical aspects, restoration of service. Again, you did not mention that it is a disaster. You mentioned that it's a disaster. Business deals function aspects, business aspects, determine the critical business. Frankly speaking, no. What you mentioned here, it is not business continuity, it's PIA. What you mentioned here, that it will determine the critical business, what the impact we have on the business, and so on. This is the definition of the BIA, business impact analysis. The business continuity, we mentioned that very simply that it's ensuring that the organization's services and products are running even in a case of any disruption. This, it can be in the form of IT solution or non-IT solution, as I mentioned yesterday. Suppose that you are a company, you are selling spare parts, and the invoice, it is a very important part of the deal with your customers, because your warranty depends upon the invoice. Then, if you did not provide the invoice for the customer, he will not buy the equipment, because how he can guarantee that you will provide him the service later? Then usually you are printing the invoice to him from the system, but now the system is down. Then what will happen? Then this means that you have to print or type a manual invoice for him. Then the business continuity to ensure that the operation, it will work. And as we mentioned, that business continuity, it has multiple components. It's not only the disaster recovery. It may be disaster recovery, high availability, business, emergency management, crisis management, and so on. Okay. By the way, gentlemen, just to understand, CCSP, it will not go deep like that. But again, as I told you, I want to make sure that you are understanding the concept. When whatever any questions you will get, it will be very easy for you, because if you are understanding the concept, then this, it will be a piece of paper. Is BC part of DR? Of course not. I tried to make this confusing for you. Is the PC part of DR? Of course not. First of all, I mentioned the expressions by its abbreviations, not by the name, because it may happen that in the exam you will play this game. This number one. Number two, usually in the exam you will find some tricky questions to make sure that you are understanding, you are not memorizing. Business continuity, it is not a part of the R. And by the way, there is one he answered yes. يعني, he failed in this entrapment. Do you think that cloud can provide alternative solutions to BC for BR and BC for any organization? Wakil, he said yes. Prem, he said yes. CSP can act as BCD site for an organization. Okay, this is not the answer as I am expecting, gentlemen. This is not the answer as I'm expecting. Again, as I told you, I am expecting the answers which are mentioned in the material. I was expecting that you will tell me that we have three scenarios. Remember, when we said that we have three scenarios, first scenario that you may have your production, it's on-prem, and you have the DR, it's in cloud service provider. The second scenario that you have the production in DR, production in, cloud service provider, and the other, the DR, it's a different cloud service provider. And these are the scenarios. Frankly speaking, I'm not sure if this is important for CCSP or not, but again, I think it's important to know how they are thinking CCSP. Then this, it will save a lot of lost points in the exam. What is RTO? RTO, do you remember what is RTO? RTO, it is recoverable or recovery time objective. It's amount of time, and yes, both of you answered correctly. RBO, it is amount of data. That's right. It's amount of data. It's amount of data. It's not amount of time. Time, it is RTO, not the RBO. RSL, this service percentage. This is service percentage. For example, if we are saying that you have an production data center, it is supporting 1,000 users, and when you fail over your service into the DR, then you make your plan only for 50 users. Then this means that the RSL is 50 users. And this it makes sense, but it should come from the management approval. It comes by management approval. State some risks which you should consider when you are planning to migrate your services to the cloud. Number one, unauthorized access. Number two, internal malicious hackers. Number three, virtualizations attacks. Number four, integration, services integration. As we mentioned, that if you try to integrate the data together, it may not work. These are some of the risks. And here you mentioned the hypervisor got compromised. VMS will be vulnerable. Also, location change of the hosting or natural disasters, virtualization, data security, data breaches, BII, trust governance, and security standards, followed by CSP. Okay. All of these are valid risks, and these are valid answers. What are the BCDR life cycle phases? What is the function of each phase? Okay, this is important, and I think you answered, but Prem answered it is more, it's completed better. the scope, the requirements, analysis, access, the risk assessment, implementation, testing, report, and revise. These are the proper phases, and these the phases which you should take it in BCDR life cycle. This is a very important question, gentlemen. Why? Because, of course, I am not expecting that ISC square, it will ask a complicated questions in the BCDR. Because BCDR, it has a dedicated standards, and ISO 22301, and for the DR, we have another ISO guidelines also. When I'm not expecting that we will ask detailed questions, but I'm expecting that we will ask for the preparation for the phases, what you should do, the testing, these common things which it will be as common for the cloud server, I mean the BC and the DR. This was last questions. Okay, this is a good answer. Again, I want to highlight some important point here. As I told you, gentlemen, before, these questions are considered a little bit complicated compared with the CCSP. Because in CCSP, it will be a multiple choice, but again, I'm trying to make the concept sit in your mind. I want the concept to be a part of your mind. Then, of course, the multiple choice does not need any memorization, because this it will be very easy that you can read the questions. But as I told you, in some situations, and this I consider it usually easy questions, that we are asking a question because we are expecting a specific answer. We are expecting a specific answer. Then if you reach to the level, you say, you want this answer, then quickly search for this answer in the proposed answers. If you find it, then this means that you checked the right answer, and you make sure that you got the okay. I think this it was, yes, Prem.
Sir, I have a question. So the question is, I'm just taking an example. Let's say I'm using a cloud service provider, AWS, and I'm using Azure as my for my BCDR. Now, in this case, whether this one would be whether can I say that am I using a multi-cloud approach here? That means one one production is with one cloud service and BCDR is with other cloud service. So whether these is considered as multi-cloud, because I'm getting a little confused with what is the thin line difference, because certain books are actually interchangeably, they are using the words hybrid and multi-cloud. So when it comes to business continuity and disaster recovery in cloud, I wanted to understand this concept very clearly. I mean, I understand when it is on-prem, production is in on-prem, and BCDR is in the cloud. That is considered to be a single cloud service provider only, because on-prem is I am only in charge of it. But in a multi-cloud where there are two cloud vendors coming into picture, is that considered to be, and that too specifically only for BCDR, whether that is considered to be a multi-cloud or not?
No. Forget about BCDR. BCDR, it's not to have any relation to the naming here. Yani multi-cloud and hybrid cloud, this it's not related at all. Hybrid cloud, gentlemen, this the concept which we explained first time. What is a hybrid cloud? Hybrid cloud. Hybrid cloud, it means that you have the implementation. It may be one or two or three models. It may be private, public, private, community, private, and so on. this which we call it hybrid cloud. And there is no confusion here. Okay, يعني how many model do we have? We have public, private, community, hybrid. Hybrid, it is mix and match between the other three, whatever it is. One of the main concept, gentlemen, which it may be wrong in the market or in between the people who are working in the cloud, but it should be only two. Yani it will be private, public, it will be private, community, and so on. Of course, no, it can be three. In some organizations, they may have a community as governance, and we have a private and we have a public. This again, it's hybrid. And this is concept is hybrid. This which we call it cloud, hybrid cloud. There is another terminology. It came as a new, frankly speaking, I started to hear it since 1 year or maybe less, with multi-cloud. Multi-cloud. What is the multi-cloud? Multi-cloud that due to the need of redundancy, this reason number one, due to the need of very high computing resources, as for example, when you are working in digitalization and you have Hadoop and you are doing all these processes on data and so on, then this will be very heavy and requires high computing power. In some situations, we are using two different cloud service providers because some of them, they are providing some features which are not available in the first one and so on. Then this which we call it multi-cloud, and this which we start now to hear about the multi-cloud, because we are saying for some reasons you may need to have two different cloud service providers for Google can be, as the example which you mentioned, Prem, now that I have I'm working with AWS and I want to utilize Azure as or whatever the other the cloud service provider as disaster recovery, or I have cloud. I have, for example, one applications and it will load balance between both of them, and so on. But I am afraid that yesterday we were, including myself also, I gave, I think, some wrong answers. But I want you now to concentrate on the definitions from this video recording, not from yesterday. Hybrid cloud, it is mix and match between the different cloud implementations, which are public, private, community. It may be two or more. Multi-cloud, this means that you have multiple cloud service providers, where we are working together. One of the questions which it may be asked, suppose that I have infrastructure distributed across multiple data centers. Do you think that data center for the cloud service provider, do you think that this is a multi-vendor because different data centers? No, it is not. Why? Because by the end of the day, it's a single cloud service provider, and all the services provided by the cloud service providers are homogeneous and we are working together. But when we are saying multi-cloud, when we start to ask about the orchestration, and excuse me, because I know that I'm not able to pronounce it well. I tried, but unfortunately, I'm not able. But I'm quite sure that you understand what I want to say. The orchestration, this is the tool which is responsible for arranging the integration between multiple cloud service providers or with the cloud service provider and the on-prem. When you have hybrid cloud, it's on-prem, have some application in a cloud service provider. This orchestration, it will be responsible to orchestrate the traffic and management between the service between these two infrastructures. Or in other scenarios, it may be different cloud service providers. I have some application running on AWS, some others on Google, some others on Azure, and all these together are working from your point of view as a user from as a single server, because I have an orchestration service which we are working together. Did I answer the question?
Okay, but I still have, I'm going to say like, I understood the definitions. So when it comes to business continuity, BCDR, and there I'm using a different vendor, that is also can be, that also can be said as multi-cloud, right?
Yes. Please
Okay.
don't
Okay. Got it.
don't get the BCR here at all. BCDR, it does not have anything in these terminologies at all. It has nothing to mention here at all. And don't confuse yourself. BCDR, it is a board. You will use a cloud service provider, you are using on-prem, whatever, then this it's not issue at all in the definition. We are not it does not represent any factors in the definition.
Okay.
Okay, then I think now we can start our module number 4 for the application. Just I want to say something which is very important, gentlemen. A lot of people, they hate this module. A lot of people, they hate this module. They consider that this module, it is, I don't know, they are saying difficult, or they are saying that we don't have enough experience in application, when we are feeling that this module, it's not easy for us and all this stuff. Just I want to tell you something, gentlemen. This module, it is very easy. And this module, it's considered one of the modules which you can gain, points. You can gain points. Why? Because ISC Square, they are understanding very well that it is not easy, but we will test you about the development and all this stuff. When here we only work as basics. We will give you the basics, but we will not ask very detailed questions. Then you will find that life will be very easy. If you will understand the points which we will mention, it will be very easy. And even the exam, it will rotate around this point. Even if they will try to bring one question from here or there, it will not be so complicated. Then just my advice, please forget about these rumors which we are saying this is very difficult, this it's easy, this we can this all of this, it's sorry in this word, and excuse me for this it's bullshit, and I don't want you to consider anything like that. As we are moving together, I think the last 3 modules were very easy. We understand the concept, we understood the concepts, and I am quite sure if you try to have sample questions, you will find it easy as well. Okay. Now we will study a very, very important topic, gentlemen, although it is only representing half page in the all-in-one book. What is this? It is the APIs. The APIs. What is the APIs? As we mentioned before, that the API is the application program interface, and we mentioned that the API, they are the interface between the users and the cloud service provider infrastructure. I will not be able to reach to the cloud service provider infrastructure, services, administration, login, whatever, anything without API. This API, it can be in the background where the you have an application, and this application, it is communicating with the cloud service provider application, or it can be a normal web browser which you are familiar with, and you are open the browser and you will type admin.google.com, for example, then it will open a screen where you can provision service, you can have a look on your services, you can enable loggings, enable reporting, enable whatever you want. These are the points which you can use the API there. API, we have 2 different types. We have 2 different types which we are represented in or mentioned in the CCSP. Number 1, it is the REST. Number 1, it is called REST. REST, it is representative sorry, not representative, it's representational. Representational state transfer. Okay. And the second one, it's called SOAP, which is simple object access protocol. These are the two APIs which we have. It is very important to memorize this slide. This is very important. You will find for sure, no discussion, you will find a lot of questions here. Okay? What is the difference between both of them? What is the difference between both of them? REST, it depends or it relies upon the HTTP. It relies upon HTTP type. What about SOAP? SOAP, it is again rely on HTTP and also the FTP. FTP also it's possible. This means that, for example, if you have opened your browser, then you by utilize the HTTP protocol, you will be able to access the application. Or if you are using FTP, again, you will be able to access the application. Of course, the FTP, it is a file transfer protocol, and this is a protocol which is used to transfer files between two different machines. But HTTP, it is a protocol which is used to load the browser's applications. Okay, what else? The second point that in REST, it supports variety of data formats. It supports a variety of data format. Okay. This it can be with the JSON or XML. You know, XML, it is a language, it's used for programming the web pages. What about the SOAP? SOAP, it supports XML only. Here we have support XML, here we have XML and JSON. Right. Usually you will ask, what is JSON? I don't care what is JSON. I don't care at all. We will never ask you about this, because this, I remember in 2016 when I started studying and I want to understand JSON, I found that this is a very complicated issue. And I remember when I sent it as a clarification for ISC Square, they said just to understand the concept, this it will be okay, because this is a language which it can be used for developing browsers. One of the most important point for comparisons that we REST, it's allows caching, and this it will increase performance. Or we can say allow caching for performance increases and scalability. You know what is caching? Usually caching, gentlemen, what do you mean by caching? In HTTP or in browser, what is caching? Let me open a new screen. Caching, this is a concept which proxy server, it was built for it. Yani people, they are thinking proxy server, it's built to allow controls over the users who will access internet and who is not. Yes, it is one of its features, but mainly the caching, it was the main reason why they developed the proxy. Why? Because you have a slow internet connection. Let's have an example. What about the caching? Caching, that you have internet here. You have here the internet. You have a Microsoft server, www.microsoft.com, for example. And you have here your router, you have your firewall, then you have here some users. If you have a proxy server here, and this proxy server, or let's say caching server, to make the expression clear, then what will happen if this user, he will type www.microsoft.com. It is defined in the configuration of the browser that first of all it has to go to this server, and it will check, do you have this page in your cache? Do you have a copy of this? Do you know anything about it? He will say, no, I don't know it. I did not bring this page before. Then the server, it will go through the internet to the server, the Microsoft server, and it will get it, and it will keep a copy of www.microsoft.com, and this information, whatever any things on this information, it will be cached here. Of course, gentlemen, this caching, who defines the caching and how much, how long it will be stay, and so on. Of course, it is the server. This server, there are some pages, for example, it can be cached, and some others it cannot be cached. And suppose that you are working with the stock in the market. Do you think that caching it will work? Of course, it will not, because now if I have a share and this share, it is $100, for example, after 2 minutes, it can be $10. I don't know, even after 2 seconds, it can be $2 or maybe high or less. Then this means that there are some pages, the developers, we have to define that these pages, it should not be cached. When, although it's passed by the caching server, but when the server is saying that caching it is 0, it will not be cached. Every time, the server, it should go and bring this page to the users. This, which we call it the caching. Then, if we go back for this comparison, we will find that the rest, it will support the caching. But for the SOAP, no, it is not. Does not support. Then, if it's not support, what this the consequences here? The consequences, it will be lower performance. The consequence here, it will be lower performance. Then, when we will explain this, you will find usually people, they are saying, okay, if you are saying that, as we can say here, SOAP, it is better than REST. No discussion. The only difference here, which is SOAP, it's better the FTP, and no one it's utilize the FTP right now. Then why we are using the SOAP? Let's drop the SOAP and we use REST. Yes, this is the standard now, gentlemen. REST, it is the standard. But in some situation, you may have an old website or old application which is still utilizing the SOAP connection, or I mean API. Then there are some APIs still they are utilizing SOAP in the market. Then we have to work with it. What we can say, I will not be able to drop the applications. But usually, these two, REST and SOAP, who are available in the market. Okay, this is very important. Very important. You have to memorize it, because you will find a lot of questions about this one. As you will see in the exam, that there are a lot of questions you will find it in the related to application and application APIs. Okay.
I have a question, Mr. Osama.
تفضل.
Yes. So you mentioned that API is very important in cloud, right?
course.
And I just don't get how they are using or depending so much on REST, which is using HTTP, for example, not HTTPS.
When
This
we are saying HTTP or HTTPS, that's fine, no problem at all. يعني HTTPS, it is a matter of some configuration in the OSI model. When from point of view of the application, يعني, let me give you an example. In some website, you may type http ://www.xyz.com. Then you will find that the server, it will automatically change the protocol into HTTPS. When this is issue, it is not related for the application. It's related to the web server, to the web server. It is not the interface. You got my point?
Yes. Okay.
يعني
So
now I'm speaking about the application layer. In the application layer, I don't have encryption, I don't have anything. Then it will go HTTP. When it wants to move into the network, we have all the encryption and all these things where it will be done. It will be done in layer number 6, presentation layer. Okay?
okay. So
okay.
which one is commonly used, like
REST.
the most dependent?
REST.
REST, huh?
REST, of course. REST.
There will be questions about it, right?
In exam, you mean?
Yeah.
Lot of questions. Lot of questions. أسئلة كتير.
Just this 10 minutes explanation, there will be a lot of questions?
Sorry? Yes, because it is very important. Yani you will find, we are speaking about this, at least you will find 2 questions. And usually these questions, it will be very simple. Very simple. It is related to caching, related to protocol, related, something like that, which is something very simple.
Okay.
Now, gentlemen, yeah.
So, sir, the way I understood now, whatever you said in the last few minutes is cloud applications. When I have to host a cloud application or develop a cloud application, it uses predominantly APIs, and SOAP and REST are the kind of frameworks for the to develop the APIs for the cloud applications.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, as a cloud service provider, as a cloud security professional, you have to understand what are the pitfalls of applications hosting in your data center and move it into the cloud. What will be the points which you have to work with? You are familiar with the data center and you know what are the problems with the applications, you have the security controls and everything. Then what are the pitfalls which we have to consider during the migration migration of the services into the cloud? And what are the possible pitfalls which you may face? Point number 1, portability issues. You remember the portability, gentlemen? Do you still remember what was definition of portability?
Yeah, portability is basically with respect to one, data formats from one service provider to another service provider, application portability from one service provider to another service provider, which means if an application has been running or a data has been running in one service provider, and when I move it to another service provider, it must run seamlessly.
Yes. When the point here that you have to think very clearly about the portability. Is it easy to move the application from your data center into the cloud, one of the most important things, which unfortunately, you don't think about it, is the security controls which are providing the security for the equipments, or I mean security for the applications. What do you mean? Unfortunately, gentlemen, and as I told you before, one of the main problems with the developers that they did not study security in the college or during the training courses. And security, they just, believe it or not, they will never touch it. Even they will never touch it. They will never touch it. When they don't have the concept of the security, then you may find in some situation that there is a programmer, he will create an authentication for application. Authentication, he does not know what is authentication or how it is working, but from point of view of a developer, that this its username and password, I can save the information and keep it in cookies on the workstation and so on. From point of view of security, as a security administrator, this it can be a crisis, because if you keep authentication and authorization information as a cookie, then this means that, and if your machine it's not able to delete the this cookie after usage of or after access, then there may be any hacker or any other user who will utilize these cookies and they can access the application. Then it is very important to understand in our practical life, applications we are not developed with 100% security in concern. Although, as you can see, you will find now we will speak about the secure SDLC and all this stuff, but still it is not a part of the mindset of the developers, and this it will cause a lot of problems. And there may be the applications, it's not checking for the injections, even if LDAP injection or SQL injections or whatever. And as I told you before, although SQL injection was known almost 10 years ago, but maybe 20 years ago, but still till this moment, you will find some sites, they have a problem with the SQL injection. Why? Because the developers are not checking for the input. When I defined that this field, it should have username and password, I should not enter a comment, SQL comment. If, for example, 1 = 1, if you will open a code, you will open a code like that and say 1 = 1, then this is considered as truth, right? It is a right condition. In some situations, the application may dump its database or remove additional information for the hackers. Then, why you are wasting this time and explain me a lot of things about developers and all this stuff? You said that there is no need to understand all these things. Yes, but I want to tell you only something. In our practical life, usually we are using, or we are using to protect the applications by network security controls. By network security controls, and this is one of the designs. Let me show you something. I have one firewall here, and I have this, which we call it, for example, external zone. We have here the DMZ. You have here the internal zone. Then you will have one other dedicated firewall here, which is for the data center. And this data center, there may be some zones here, and you will put this application here. And this application, it is hosted in a dedicated zone, because this application, it's old one, and you don't have the source code. You are not able to review the source code. You are not able to update the patches because the application support it's expired, or maybe developer it's not available anymore, and so on. When we are saying this is critical for the business, I will not be able to say, oh, please, Mr. Business, I'm really sorry, I will not be able to use this application because this, I don't have the source code, I'm not able to check it, I'm not able, I don't have any guarantee from the vendor is out of business, I don't have support for batches or fixes and so on. But the business, he will tell you, go to hell, I don't care. This is very important for my business. And although I can understand the importance of what you are saying, but I will not be able to eliminate this application immediately. This, it will take 6 months or 1 year until I will be able to move all my data and transactions into a new. And we say, okay, if I'm not able to make the check for the input fields, if I'm not able to review the code and all this stuff, then I will tell you that's fine. Let's have one more device here, which we call it XML firewall. And we will speak about this maybe today or tomorrow, I'm not sure. This firewall, it will be able to check all the input fields, and if there is any something unauthorized, it will be able to. Then, as you can see here, do you think that this it will be easy to be moved into cloud service provider? Of course not. Why? Because the hosting in my cloud, hosting in my data center, it's providing one additional feature for the application security. It provides here the zoning where it is hosted in a dedicated zone, in one dedicated zone where there is no internet access, no users will be able to access it except if it is authorized and so on. Number two, I have XML firewall where all the traffic, it will go through the XML firewall. Then these are the important things which I have to consider when I will move. If I take the application like that and put it in the cloud, it may work, but it is not protected. And this, it will open a lot of risks and problems which we may face, data compromise or application compromise or data breaches or whatever the type of breaches which we can get. This one of the probability issues. What else? Another issue which is very important also, which we found it in the market, that in the cloud, gentlemen, now we have all the cloud infrastructure is built on the new technologies. Maybe new development languages, it may be new technologies and so on. And if you are trying to move a legacy system from a traditional data center into the the cloud, which it can be old application, it may not work properly. There may be some, for example, delay. Don't forget that the cloud, you are connected through a media, you are connected through internet connection, which it can be very slow. There may be some performance issues and so on. Then we will face some problem. And just to explain you or give you this feeling, I remember around 10 years ago, when we were working in communication, internet speed, it was not high. And at that time, we were working with DSL, we were working with dial-up and so on. When if you are a rich company or you have some applications which require high bandwidth, and you don't have enough bandwidth for DSL and other alternatives, then usually we are utilizing the satellites. Although the satellites, it was providing high bandwidth, it can provide high bandwidth, but still it will not be suitable for some applications like video streaming, live audio streaming. Why? Because these applications depend upon the performance, and there is a delay in the satellite. There is a delay in the satellite communication. This delay, it will create jitter and it will create a lot of problems related to these applications. And although because the technology is high end, it is not working. This does not mean that it will work great with the application. No, this may not work with the application. This, it may create some delay, some performance issues, and so on. Then the point here, usually you will hear this, and usually I will repeat this word many times with you during my discussion, that the application, gentlemen, it is not a forklift. It is not a forklift. You know the forklift, this which is the device which we are used to remove the boxes, big boxes, to go from under the box and keep it up from the ground and move it left or right. Then it is not easy. It's not a forklift. You have to understand very well that it is not just take the application. A lot of people will tell you, come on, gentlemen, what is the problem? You mentioned that by the end of the day, that the cloud service, it is a data center. Now I have this application in my data center, then I will remove the server, host it in the cloud service. It is up and running. I don't have any problem. Yes, it is right, but may face problem with performance. You may face problem with a delay. You may face problem with security issues, and so on. Okay, this, it was the portability issues. We may have another one which called a cloud appropriateness. Is it appropriate solution? Appropriate solution. What do you mean by appropriateness? There are some standards, gentlemen. We are considered that your data, it will not be protected, or your applications, it will not be protected and certified as secure unless if you have protected infrastructure running behind these applications. And this makes sense. And just imagine if you have an application which is secure, but the infrastructure, it is not secure, where it can, for example, capture the data over a network. Then the data, it will be leaked and so on. Then there are a lot of standards which we are considering that the applications and services, it will not be secure unless the infrastructure, it will be secure. And you have to make sure that the cloud appropriateness based upon the standards which you want to follow. And this is very important. If I want to move my application, then I have to check, do you have the appropriate infrastructure? Suppose that I will ask the cloud service provider, Mr. Cloud Service Provider, do you have two internet connection for a different clouds from a different internet service provider? He will tell you, yes, of course. I have one from Internet Service Provider 1 and another one from Internet Service Provider 2. Then you will feel relaxed, because if the connection it's failed, the other one, it will take over, and the user, they will not feel that there is a disruption in the service. You have to ask him, do you have, Mr. Cloud Service Provider, encryption over your network? Then if the data it is captured by some way, does it consider as a breach for my network or data or applications? Or this, it will be data encrypted, then it will be a garbage, in the form of garbage for the user, or I mean for the hacker, who will not be able to understand all these things. And you have to consider the whole picture. Please, this is very important. You have to consider the whole picture. Then when you want to evaluate a cloud service provider, you have to go through cloud security, infrastructure security, application security. What about the operations? Do you have the compliance and regulations? Are you GDPR compliant? Are you HIPAA compliant? Are you able to provide SOC reports and so on? As we mentioned, in some situation also, it may be application, you may be cloud infrastructure, we are using new technologies, maybe new programming languages, new platforms, whatever. Your company may still working with the legacy systems and legacy programming languages. You have to make sure that your company is ready for this move. We are ready for this move. Are they ready for this move? Yeah, for example, you want to have a PaaS solution. When the PaaS solution, you will tell him, for example, I mean the customer, you will ask the provider to provide him the cloud, language, COBOL language, for example. He will tell you COBOL language visits expired almost 25 years ago. What COBOL language? You tell him, I'm really sorry. My application is an old one and it's still running and it's under COBOL language, for example. Then this will be a crisis. Okay. We have another point here, which again, it's important with integration challenges. Integration challenges with its real case. And again, I had the feeling of the integration challenges from my experience in the market. Usually, gentlemen, when you will have a look on your application and services, you will find in the background we are integrated with each other. Although in some situation you would say no, we are not, but actually we are. You may find the ERB, it is integrated with the SMP server to send and receive email. You may find that the applications, they are integrated with the SIM solution, when it will be able to send the logs information. It may be integrated with security devices for remote access. We are integrated with 2FA solution for sending one-time password for remote access, and so on. When all these things, it can be very easy and piece of cake if you have your infrastructure sitting in a data center. In one data center, if I am trying to enable the 2FA and the integration between the ERB remote access with the 2FA and it does not work, then it is easy to check the logs of the 2FA, what was the problem, and logs of the application, and so on. But when it will reach to the level of cloud service provider or cloud hosting, this is not easy, especially with SaaS, for example. With SaaS, you will not be able to check how it's working. You don't have an access for logs, you don't have access for troubleshooting or whatever. You have to work with the cloud service provider, and these things, it must be very clear in the service agreement and so on. Then this means that the integration or challenge, there will be challenges with the integration of the services together to ensure that the users, we will have the same experience which we are used to in the normal data centers or on-prem data centers. One of the other challenges or pitfalls, the cloud environment challenges. What are the cloud environment challenges? This, I think we covered. As we mentioned, you have in your organizations developers, you have project managers. These are, they worked before on developing applications, we have the experience and so on. But certainly when you are moving all your experience from on-prem into a cloud service provider, and you will ask him to use some old applications or old libraries or whatever, we will tell you, we are really sorry, we are not utilizing any old technologies because we want to avoid any lock-in. We want to avoid the lock-in for applications and data. When this, it will not work. When you will find that you have to move into the new technology. You have to move into the new technology, but your team, we are not yet ready. And just imagine, I am a developer, I am expert in XYZ programming languages. I have experience 5 years or 10 years, and I'm doing the exercise. Suddenly, the cloud service provider is telling me, sorry, you can use, for example, .NET. What is .NET? I'm not sure about it, and I don't know how can I do it. Then how can the developer, he will start immediately to do the developing for his organization and his business. Then this, it will be a problem. Also, project managers, they may not be able to support the new technologies. Yani, for example, I'm quite sure that if you have experience with the project management, now we are speaking about a new technology, and even PMI, they speaking about the project management as agile concepts, and I think we will discuss this later in the few slides, that there is a big concept between the agile and the non-agile or the traditional methods, and so on. Then this, it will be the challenges which you may face in moving your applications from the on-prem into a cloud service provider. Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Osama.
Fine.
We are discussing here challenges to move to cloud, right?
Yes. Not
So,
challenges and considerations. Okay.
so this is part of what we were discussing earlier. I mean, in the past, in the last domain and before.
Here
So
we
we can add
are.
that to that.
No, it is not. Don't forget that now we are speaking about applications. Before, we were speaking about module number 2, about the data, structure of the data. Number 3, infrastructure. Today, we are speaking about the application. Then whatever all the challenges which we are speaking about, they are concentrated on the application and how we can migrate, and challenges which we can face to migrate an application.
Okay, but some of them we already mentioned earlier, right?
Of course, we are common. Of course, you will find we are common. It is not. We will not bring something new, yani, but it will be the same concept. I will speak about encryption. Do you think that encryption, it will be a different issue between network and application? By the end of the day, the concept will be the same.
Okay.
Okay.
Sir, I have a question here. So all these challenges will come when I'm moving an application from on-prem to the cloud. Now, suppose if I develop an application itself in a cloud environment, so it's from the scratch, a custom solution, I'm not going to face much of challenges.
Again, it depends. I will not be able to say that. It depends, and what is the factor which it will control this? It is the understanding of the developer, how he understands security. If he will provide you an application that it can do the function, but unfortunately he is not aware about security, then I'm afraid that you will face a problem. You will be in a problem. You have to provide security controls. You have to provide physical security controls. And even you will be surprised when I will tell you that these security controls, which are related to the network, you will find it here mentioned in this module, because in this module, he will tell you, okay, if you are not able to provide security controls, or the security protection for the application, we have to provide it with something else. It may be XML firewall, it may be a dedicated firewall, it may be whatever it is, as we will see later. Then if you are starting from scratch, and the developer, he is taking security, and as you will see in the secure SDLC, what does it mean that security, it should be taken from scratch? You will be, yes, in safe side, and even you will avoid lock-in and all this stuff. But if the developer, he is not caring, or he does not understand the security constraints and requirements, again, I'm really sorry to tell you, no, you will face a problem again.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. I think we deserve our break. Will be for 15 minutes today.
Okay.
And after we break, I'll see you to speak about a very, very, very important topic, which we will discuss after the break, inshallah, which are the attacks or the common attacks, top 10, OWASP top 10. Thank you, and see you after the break. And we will continue with one of the most important topics. And by the way, this is a very important thing. You will hear about it a lot, which is called the OWASP, the top 10 project by OWASP. OWASP, it's a non-profit organization which we are working for providing security controls and to find the critical web application security risks which are related for the browsers and I mean web applications. What are the OWASP top 10? The OWASP top 10, they are, by the way, OWASP, it is Open Web Application Security Project. It was a project, OWASP. What we will speak about is the top 10 projects. Top 10 projects, we are defining what are the most critical security risks for a web application. Number one, we call it A1. It is the broken access control. Of course, you know what is the access control. Access control, it's related for the authorization and authentication, where the user he have to authenticate himself and we check what are the permissions allowed to him to access on the network. In some situations, gentlemen, we found that the application, it may using, for example, maybe cookies or whatever, any other methods which or maybe stored on the desktop or I mean the client. When this information, it can be utilized later by a hacker or unauthorized access, where he will be able to use this information to access the service. Of course, it depends here because as Mahmoud, he asked question, he asked before we are going on vacation, why you are repeating these things? We heard this before or we explained this before. But now, for example, when we are speaking about broken access control, although we explained the access control before, but we explain it from point of view of a network connection. It may be a session hijacking, maybe a hacker recapture data, and so on. But now what we will say, shall we repeat the same definitions? Of course not. Why? We have to say that, Mr. Developer, please take care. These applications must, for example, if you are using cookie for what we can say, the authorization, then this cookie, it must be expired after a specific time, and it should be deleted. Or every time you are trying to access a specific application, don't depend that you are already authorized since the beginning of the session. No, it should every time you have to be authenticated. Every time I'm trying to access a resource, I am trying to authenticate it. Then I had some of my trainees before, they are saying, do you say that in when I'm accessing Windows and I'm accessing email, then I'm accessing application or whatever, I am every time I am authorized? Yes, you are every time are authorized. This is done in the background. You will have something called Kerberos, and Kerberos, you have a token. This token, it will give you a specific authorization every time you try to access specific resource. You have to the application, it have to check if you are authorized or not, and this it will be done in the background. You don't know about it, but it's going on. Why? Because the developer, they are using the Kerberos, and Kerberos, it is protected method for access controls, authentication, and authorization, and it will be very secure for the access control. Okay. By the way, if you are familiar with WASP, you will find that the top 10 WASP we are changed. We update the list and we are change it, and you will find after periodic we are review it periodically, and now they change the attacks, and you will find new attacks are added and other attacks are removed. Then this does not mean that this is wrong top 10, but this is updated. A2, it is the cryptography failure. Cryptographic is very important as we defined, and this cryptographic we are used for protecting sensitive information like privacy data, financial information, credit card information, and so on. Then, if there is any problem happened, or if there is any authorized, not authorized, unprotected layer in the encryption process, or for example, key, it may be you are using short key. You are using a short key or whatever. When this information, this it can be considered as a problem. This is considered as a problem for the encryption, and the data, it can be accessed, or your data can be breached. Then cryptography, if there is any failure in the cryptography, and if you can remember when we mentioned cryptography, we mentioned that we have two components, one for the what is it? The key management, and the other one is the algorithm. These are very important. If you have any failure in any one of them, then this means that it can compromise the data or create a problem. The A3 with injection. Injection. What is injection? Here it will not say SQL injection, because now we had two different types of injections. It can be SQL or it can be LDAP. Of course, you know the SQL, I don't mean that the SQL, this is a SQL database. It is not an SQL database. This is SQL, it's language. This SQL language, which is used for the in the databases programming. And the LDAP, of course, you know the LDAP, this is the database which contains the information of the users' credentials and attributes which are used for authentication and authorization. What is the injection of SQL? Very simple like that. If you are having one field and it's saying here username and password, then you have to define user and password. You have to define Osama, password is password, for example, then press enter, we'll go to the server, check the authentication. If it's authenticated, that's fine. Okay, great, you got the action. Hackers, they are saying, no, I will not do this. Then what do you want to do? They will say, okay, if you have these two fields, and in these two fields you write 1 equal 1, this is a correct command. This is a correct SQL command. This is an SQL command. And this is a correct. Because if we comment 1 equal 1 and 3 1 it's equal 1, when it is correct. In some situation, the application does not understand what is this. It is not expecting that you will type a comment here when you don't know what it can be behavior. In some situation, you will find that the behavior of an application that it will dump all the database to the user, the hacker. For the hacker, all the LDAP, if we inject LDAP, LDAP comment, again, it can confuse the application, because the application it's expecting that I will find here a text, but I did not find a text. What did you find? I find a comment. I don't know what to do. Then this means that I have a problem. Then it will dump the information or whatever. Then these are the injection. And with the injection, this is very critical. And as I told you, it is a very old one. Like how we can solve it? This is very important. You will not be now. We can solve this by 2 different ways. Number one, if the developer he is smart, then we have to inform the application to check before process the input data. It have to check it. Is it a comment or is it something which is not expecting? For example, you are defining in your field that it should be alphabetics and the numbers. Fine. I found special characters. Then you have to inform the user this is not accepted and you have to drop this. Don't accept it. You have to drop it. Ask him to enter the information once more. Okay, then this method number one, where you can do it through the developers. If the developer he did not take the security into his account, then this means that I can use XML firewall or HTML firewall, and this firewall it will be before the application. It will go through the application, the comments, it will go through the application, it will check it and will say, yes, it's not authorized, it's not authorized, then it will drop it and it will ask the user that please submit the authentication information again, and it will give him a message that this it's not right input, and you have to define your input. It should be in clear, I mean in a number or alphanumeric or without any special characters, for example. Okay. The other risk, it is the insecure design. Of course, it is based on the architecture, gentlemen. The architecture. If you have a good architecture, then this means that you will not find any insecure design. But insecure design, this is very critical. And insecure design, it depends upon the SDLC. Do you know what is SDLC? Did you hear about this before?
Software development lifecycle.
Yes, software development lifecycle. These are the steps which you have to follow to make your own application or develop your own application. Usually now we call it secure SDLC. We are call it secure SDLC. And I will show you maybe today or tomorrow the difference between the normal SDLC, which you are familiar with, and the secure SDLC, where security is taken into consideration since day one. These are security, it have to be integrated into your SDLC lifecycle. It should be integrated into your SDLC lifecycle, as we will see later. Other factor A5, it is the security misconfiguration. And this is one of the really problem. I am not sure if you are familiar with hardware or I mean security devices configuration as a firewall, but let me tell you something about to understand or have the feeling of this A5, what is security misconfiguration. Firewall, gentlemen, it is working with something called roles. That, for example, it will say if there is any traffic coming to the server, email server, in protocol SMTP, then allow. Then this means that whatever any traffic is coming from outside, Any, it means that coming from any IP address to my email server, and it is using SMTP, which is sending email, then we will allow this traffic through the firewall. And I am saying if I have any thing, it's coming for example, ERP server or whatever, in a form of HTTPS, then allow. These are the only traffic which I allow. By default, any firewalls, by default, if the rules are not matching, then it will drop the traffic. If there is any, this only the traffics which is allowed. It must be defined in, explicitly. If this traffic, it's not covering, these rules covering the traffic, then this means that this traffic, it will be dropped. This traffic, it will be dropped. You will find implicitly that there is one rule at the end of this list, which is not appear to you, but it is there. If there is any traffic to any server with any protocol, drop it. Then whatever anything, it will be dropped and it will not be allowed. In some situation, gentlemen, you may have your firewall, you are having your up and running infrastructure, you are trying to make your configuration, and suddenly you found that one of the application, it's not running. Then you try to check the firewall. Is it a problem with the firewall? And it's not allowing me to allow the connection and so on. Then what the administrator he will do, he will say, okay, to avoid the firewall problem, I will mention here that any traffic coming to any server with any protocol, I will allow. This it will be temporary till I will discover what is the problem. Usually in this situation, when the engineer he was able to, or the technician was able to allow the application to work and everything is working, he will leave everything and he don't want to touch anything like that because he afraid that it will not work again and the customer it will not be satisfied, or his manager he will not be satisfied. Then this means that in some situation we find that he will forget one of these commands. This is a crisis. You know why? Because this means that you have a short circuit on your firewall. It will not check anything. It will not check anything. It is act as a piece of fire. The traffic, it will pass very simply. It will come, allow, thank you very much. It will be allowed. That's it. I don't have anything. This is a misconfiguration. In some situation, other points of misconfiguration that you did not change the default passwords. You did not change the default username and password, especially for administrators. Usually, if you have any old application, it will use username as admin or administrator or whatever. Then one of the usernames which the hackers usually are using, it is the admin and administrators. Then if you change it, then this means that you avoid or you give very hard time for the hackers to discover what is the username. Okay, this is the misconfiguration. Yes.
I have a question in misconfiguration. You mentioned that we have to change the default and credential and everything. In here, is hardening could be the solution of that, or it's totally different?
Yeah, this it will be a different. Misconfiguration, it is not hardening, because hardening, it is a separate process of that. For example, I'm installing Windows, for example. And so Windows Server, and I'm telling you misconfiguration. What is misconfiguration? You left the admin username as admin. You did not change the default password. Guessed it is not deleted, whatever. These are the things which you have to, the default configuration, to change the default configuration. But when I tell you, I want you to harden this machine, this it will be a different issue. What are the things? You have to check what are the used services, what are the used programs, remove these unused programs and unused services, stop all these services and so on. Then there is no misconfiguration here. I don't have any misconfiguration here. Misconfiguration that you are doing administration task and you did it wrongly. As I showed you, you add one command in wrong way. Okay.
Yeah, okay. I thought that it's probably configured, so maybe it's not probably configured. It means we are sometime. No, but now
No.
it's different. Okay.
Yes. Okay. The A6, it's vulnerability and outdated components. This is one of the important tasks, although small organizations and even medium organizations, we are not caring about this. Gentlemen, we agreed that in IT, if it's hardware, software, operating systems, applications, middleware, whatever, just name it. It is by the end of the day, it's a program and there is a developer, he made this program. And there may be some flaws or some problems or some errors or whatever. And this it's not abnormal. This it's normal. Then we have to find what are these vulnerabilities and make the fixes. If you will not follow up with your components to find out these vulnerabilities, you will be vulnerable because users, hackers, they can utilize these vulnerabilities and consider that consider this as a backdoor to compromise your data and your application. Also, outdated components. What are the problems of outdated components? Number one, they don't have any fixes. They don't have any updates from the vendor. If you faced any problem, then the vendor, he will not be able to support you because he mentioned that we are really sorry, we are not supporting this service or application anymore, and so on. Then these are really problems, but unfortunately, if the application is up and running, we will keep it. If the hardware is up and running, we will keep it. For example, we have the depreciation period usually in Middle East 5 years. Then, okay, if I have a machine after the 5 years, this machine, it's now zero cost. I have to check with the vendor. Do you still support the device or not? If he's not supporting, then drop this device, because if there is any hacker who discovered a problem with your machine, you will be vulnerable. This it will be against your infrastructure and against your security controls. Okay, the A7 is the identification and authentication failures. Of course, authentication is very important. You have to keep an eye on the failures of authentication. You have to keep a log for it to understand if it's normal or not. You have to use some clean methods or updated methods where we are able to provide tokens or any other mechanisms which are secure. You have to use, for example, SAML or whatever, but you have to make sure that you are utilizing a good method or a proper method for the authentication. Software and data integrity failures. If you are trying to integrate two applications or the output of one application to be an input to other application and so on, and you did not do this which can be done in the form of APIs, if it's not done properly, then this can create a failure. And if it creates a failure, then this data, it can be compromised or it can be breached. In line, the security logging and monitoring failures. Logging is very important, gentlemen. Logging is very important. You must have sufficient logging. You must have sufficient logging. Logging is very important. It will help you to understand what is going on in your network and in your environment. Of course, logging by its own, on its own, it is not enough. Logging, if I will ask you, do you have logging? Yes, I have 5 terabyte logging on my storage. Come on, do you have any tools and qualified persons who are able to review these logs? If you tell me no, I'll tell you thank you very much. Then what is the benefit of the logs? Usually in the security logging, it will be now, especially by increasing the attacks and increasing the level of competence of the hackers, when you may need some SIM solutions with correlation and all this stuff, then to make life easy and to provide you with more and detailed information about any attacks if it exists. The last one, it is a server-side request forgery. Server-side request forgery, this gentleman, one of the common techniques that the application, it is using a specific URL, and this URL, it will provide data. It will provide data. It will provide you a data. Yani, for example, if you want to see this type, just go and search in Google for a specific information. Then you will find that it is saying that I want this page which it has a specific thing equal so and so. And these are the types of data which it can be considered as problems. Of course, you have to eliminate these type of URLs. You have to eliminate these types of URL because this data, it can be captured and it can allow the other users to, hackers to utilize this information, and it will be, it will open a backdoor. Okay. In the new version of CCSP, they add something new, which is called SANS Top 25. These are the top 25 risks. Now, which we, 1 minute, which we discussed before. It was the OWASP. We discussed the OWASP top 10. The SANS, they have their own SANS, again, it is another organization, and they have their dangerous software errors, and they define some things which the developers, we have to take it in their consideration to avoid any problems and to take it in their considerations to avoid it in the programming. Usually, I don't like to go through the 25 attack at the same, risk at the same time, because this, it will be very difficult. You will be confused, especially we studied the top 10 OWASP now. Then my procedure or my methodology that every day we will have 10 attacks from the top 25, starting from next time, not today. Today, I think the top 10, it will be enough for you. Next time, we will start the session with top 10. First 10, then first 10, then first 5, and this we covered all of them to make sure that you understood them, and we avoid the confusion between these attacks. Okay? Yeah. Any questions?
Sir, I had a question on that. In the OWASP top 10, the A9, the 9th risk and the 7th risk. I think the 9th risk you are talking about the security logging, and then I think the 7th one was on the identity, I think identification and authentication. So I think in the 9th risk you are talking basically logging all the security events and incidences. Am I right? It is not talking about, it is not talking about logging, to say logging of the applications or logging of data.
No, logging. I'm not saying instance at all. I did not mention incidents here at all. Because if I mention incident, this means that I have to mention first event. When this is not the we mean in the logging. When we are saying security logging, it is only logging information. You have to logging all the information as a SIM. When you have a SIM and you enable logging on SIM, are you logging incidents? Of course not. We are logging normal logs. Then we will have events. If it's any abnormal, we will have it in form event. If it will affect CIA, it will be moved into incident, and this it will be a different issue and different. But when we are speaking about logging, it is pure security logging from applications, hardware, software, operating systems, whatever it is.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Osama,
أيوة.
for the server side request for Jerry, for J. I just want to say that a practical, are you familiar with Microsoft Safe Links?
No. Unfortunately, my background as a developer, it is minimal. But just ask us a question. I may read anything about it.
No, it's like when you click on any link in Outlook or Teams or anything, it redirects to something called Microsoft Safe Link, which is check the integrity of the URL, whether it's like spam or phishing or anything, and then it will allow you to the content of the URL or the website. So I'm saying
okay.
This is like is SSRF is same like that?
Yes, what you are mentioned now, it's considered as a security control or a mitigation for the SSRF.
A countermeasure, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Now, gentlemen, we will go for the SDLC. And this, it will be the last thing for today. And usually I am not taking long time for it because it's very simple and I don't like to make life easy. Sorry, I don't want to make life difficult. What is the SDLC? I will explain the SDLC first today, and later I will tell you what will be the security. SDLC, gentlemen, we have some phases.
Sir, 1 second, sorry. I think on that SANS top 25, which you were saying that I think it has been included now. So are we supposed to also go through that? I'm going to say like, does it have any further new risk apart from the OS top 10?
Yes.
Okay.
We will go through it in batches.
Okay, sure.
The SDLC, they are systematic, this which called software development life cycle. These are, gentlemen, systematic approach for developing an application on site. Okay, then we are systematic approach where you have the use to develop an application. Then, what are the phases which do we have? Number one, you have requirement gathering and visibility. Okay. Let me ask you a question. Are you familiar with project charter?
Yes.
What is project charter?
Project charter is the preamble of actually why this project is.
This is a business case.
A business case will exactly tell that how exactly this particular project is going to be helpful. Project charter is you use the business case to develop the project charter.
Yes, then what is a project charter? What are the components of a project charter?
Okay, project charter will exactly tell about what this project is all about, and it will tell about the ultimate objective and the kind of timelines and the benefits derived from this particular project. Why this project is being undertaken, and then what are the benefits being derived from this project?
Okay, when this means that, gentlemen, the project charter, what it will do? It will provide the overall goals of the project. What are the desired outcomes? What are the inputs, available inputs do we have for this project? Suppose that you want to do an application. What are our goals? I want to do an application to print the salaries slips for the employees. Okay, what are the available input? The available input that the salaries details, which it is coming from the ERP application. What is the desired outcome? The desired outcome that he will receive a PDF file, include all the salaries details, transportations, basics, whatever, any thing related to his salary. Okay. How long the project it will take, the timing of the project. What is the overall cost of the project? What is the cost benefit analysis of the project? What are the capabilities of the current systems? And do we have the competence which we can do this project or not? Of course, this which we call it as the charter, and it should of course include all the stakeholders, define all the requirements from this project, and what are the risks as well, which we have here, which it can threaten the project. What are the tests required for this application, and what will be the requirements and desired features? All this information will be included in the gathering and visibility phase. And this is usually they will never say charter, but I ask you about the charter because actually this is a charter. Then if you are a company which they are starting a project, they will tell you prepare your charter. This is the charter. Define what are the requirements, gathering and visibility for you. Okay, great. Then I define it. I defined the charter and I defined requirements. I defined the inputs information, output information, project output, the cost benefit analysis, the schedule or timing, the risks, who are the stakeholders, what will be the testing requirements, what are the regulations and laws which I have to follow. Okay. This very important to include security in this phase as well. Now, people are saying security here. What's security? Security is coming at the end. No, this is not the secure SDLC. Secure SDLC means that in each phase, you have to stop and ask, what are the required security? What are the required security? Then you have to define what are the security requirements. It may be secure application, it may be support encryption, it may be compliance with the laws and regulation, it may be support HTTPS, it may be whatever, all the security. And here, as we usually, when I'm collecting or preparing the charter, I'm going to the stakeholders and I am saying, please just dream and tell me your expectations. When if just a dream, he may say, okay, I want this project to make French fries for me. Then if you love about him, he will tell you, you said just dream. This is my dream. Okay, then that's great. Then this it will come phase number 2, that you will make requirement analysis. Is it possible to make French fries by this program? No, it is not. This it's not. Then we will not be able to do. Then this means that we are taking these requirements which we collected in the previous phase and we translate it into the real project plan. We will translate it into the real project plan. Look here, just if you are familiar with the PMI and BMB methodology, you will find all these phases, they are reflected into the BMI. Here, this is the charter. Here, develop the project plan. Now we will analyze these requirements and I have to define, because here I mentioned that we have to define the risks. But do you think that you are defining all the risks? Do you think that you define the real cost, the real schedule? Of course not. You are defining a very high level information. But when you will work in this field, you have to define exactly, when I say the cost, you have to define the cost in the project plan, real project plan, when there is no way to deviate it, because this it will be approved by the management. There is no way for the deviation. When you will say this project, it will take 6 months, then there is no way for deviation, because the customer, he will wait for you, or your user, he will wait for this application after 6 months, and so on. Then, this number 3, it will be the design. What is the design? Design, you have to move the project plan into a structure for the coding. You have to move it into a structure or a format which it can be applied by the programming language. You may say it may be libraries or whatever, but something which the developers he can understand. Because when you will give him a project plan, what is a project plan? It will be available. One section for the project scope, other section for cost, other section for schedule, then another sequence of risks, then procurement or purchasing, and one for stakeholders. These are the components of the project plan. How the developer, he will understand this? He will not understand. He needs something to put it to him to mention that, okay, I want the application, it may be like that. I will have here some menus. Here, when the user he will click, it will open a screen and it will show him his salary, and he will find here a print. When he will press on it, he will be able to print it on a printer, and so on. This it will be in a form of programming and designing, where he to put it in a format where the designer, the developer, you can understand. Then we will go to the other step, which is development and encoding. This is the most important issue. Again, gentlemen, don't forget, in each phase, you have to mention the security. What are the security requirements? The security requirements, it will be, for example, when we come to design here, I need the authentication, and it should not keep any tokens in or information to be stored in the client side. I need the protocol to be HTTPS. I need the application to check whatever any entry, to check whatever any entry in any field, and so on. Then the next phase, this phase, which number, which phase? Oh, it's 4. Phase number 4, development and coding. And this is the phase where you are moving the design into code, or which we call it source code. And by the way, gentlemen, the most time-consuming phase, it is this phase. This phase, developing and coding. This is taking a long time. And usually it takes 70 to 80% of the overall project schedule. Okay? Just keep it in your mind. This, it will take a long time. There is one of the points here, it is very important to understand that the phase number 5, testing, how the testing phase it's working. Testing here, it is very important to understand something. Very important, very important. Usually with programs, when they are complicated and it has many screens and many modules and so on, but you will find the application, it will be split into different modules. And each developer, they work on each one of them. Testing, it is very important to define how the testing it will work. You have two types of testing. Test number one, that you have to test this module alone, if it's working correctly or not, and other one alone, and the third one alone. Okay, each one of them working alone when we after we develop it. Then I will take all these modules, because by the end of the day, we are representing one application, and I will make the overall test on it. This it will save time, because when the developer, he will do this test and he will discover some problems, he will correct it. When we will discover other problems here, he will correct it. When discover here, he will correct it, and so on. But if he usually users, they are saying, okay, after I finish developing, I take it and I give it for the test team to do the exercise. This means that you are wasting time, because this it may be difficult. You are not sure if there is any problem in the application. Is it coming from here or there, and so on. Then the testing methodology, which you have to follow, that you have to test the module by module, then integrate the application, make it as one application, and make the final testing for it. This the fifth phase, which is the testing. Last phase, it is the maintenance, and of course, maintenance, gentlemen, this it is the after you have the application in the field. After you have the application in the field, if you have the application in the field and it start to work, you have to maintain it. You discovered some problems, you discovered some bugs, it needs or requires some fixes. It may require additional features, updates, and so on. These are the maintenance phase which is required. It is very important to understand the SDLC. It is very important. For sure, you will find a lot of questions related to SDLC. When we are saying secure SDLC, it is exactly the same. But unfortunately, security for people means that developer, he is working in his own island. He will make the business, he will, or project management manager, he will collect the requirements. He will analyze the requirements. Then he will provide it into the business, the analysis, and we will design the code, or design, I mean the structure. Then give it to developer. They will put it in a code. Then we test the code. Is it doing the functionality? Yes. Then after that, we'll say, hey, security team, please come check if it's okay or not. Come on, gentlemen. This is not the right way. When we are saying security, this means that secure SDLC, security, it's involved in each and every phase. Security is, I usually am considered security like that, gentlemen. You have here the phases, with requirements gathering, analysis, design, coding, testing, maintenance. Here it is security, it is umbrella. Security, it is here. You have to define during the requirements, what are the security requirements? You have to define during the design, what will be the design of the security in the screens, how it will work, how to protect it from disclosure information, and so on. Okay, then security, you will find one of the questions, which is a standard. Gentlemen, security, it should be included in which phase? As multiple choice. It is saying is in requirements, or design or testing or none of the above? What's your answer? Is it A, B, C, or D?
Design.
Sorry?
Design.
Design. Okay. Any other answer?
We have to choose one only, right?
Yes. Your CCSP exam, you are allowed one question, one answer only.
No requirement.
Requirements. Okay. Any other answer? It is D. Why D? Because we mentioned security, it must go through all the phases. But if you use A or B or whatever, then this means that Mahmoud, he mentioned requirements. Okay. What about testing? You don't want to test if the requirements, the security which you defined in the requirements are enabled or not. And Brem, in the design, you don't want in the coding to make sure that these security designs are already implemented. And in the testing, you don't want to check there may be some missed security controls. Then security controls, gentlemen, security, it should go through every and single phase you must have in the explanation or the definition of each phase, a topic called security to go through. Okay. I think, unfortunately, I will not be able to continue because the other topic, it is the methods, and this it will take some time, and 40 minutes. I'm afraid now we have 20 minutes. It will not be enough. Then it will be okay for today because I know that we speaking too much concepts about the application, especially the team. We are not aware about developer and applications. This it will be okay for today. Yes.
Sir, I have a question here. So now for since we have the SANS 25 and then we have the OASP 10, so how do we actually, I mean to say, is there any methodology in which probably we can remember all these risks with examples?
Unfortunately, no. Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
Because as I told you before, in CCSP, we are expecting that you have 5 years experience in this field. Then they are saying you should know this as a part of your daily operations. Then, unfortunately, no. But my advice, memorize it. Make it as memorization. Yani, this it will be okay. Especially it is not complicated. I don't want to go in more details. What we explained, it more than enough for the exam. It will be more than enough for the exam. Then don't waste your time. You will Google it and get more information, SSRF, and how it will work. It is from one server to another server, and the data, it will be cross-site. Don't do this exercise. It will be very complicated. All the information which we mentioned in the session, it will be enough for the exam. And I'm quite sure that you will find a lot of questions about these attacks in the training sample, which you have. I mean, question samples, and this it will give you the feelings, what are the required information which you have to know about each and every one of these top 10 and top 25 for SANS and OS.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, gentlemen, I think we done for today's session. Thank you very much, and see you next week. Thank you.